Welcome back to Learn English with Wania. This is day 4 of our 40 Days English Story Challenge, where we improve our English through real-life stories and speaking practice. Let's get started.
Does this sound familiar? You've got 1,000 words of English swirling around in your head, but the moment you open your mouth, they vanish. You can follow the movie, you get the article, you even think of the perfect witty reply in your mind. But then, when you're in a real conversation, you just freeze up. It's a frustrating, lonely feeling, isn't it? But what if I told you that you don't need another grammar lesson or a massive new vocabulary list? What if the key to unlocking your English voice is a simple mindset shift you can make right now? We're going to follow the story of a man named Leo who was trapped in that same silence. He discovered a secret that changed everything. Stick with me, because by the end of this, I'm giving you one simple task to unlock your own confidence. That feeling of being trapped behind an invisible wall is incredibly common. You've done the work. You've put in the hours listening and reading, but speaking feels like a completely different, terrifying monster. The fear of making a mistake, of being judged, of not sounding perfect, it all piles up until silence feels like the only safe option. But here's the thing. The problem isn't your English. The problem is a mental block. For years, we're taught that learning a language is all about collecting things. More words, more rules, more practice. But what if the answer isn't about adding more, but about changing your perspective? What if the secret is a simple shift in your mindset? This is Leo's story, and it can be your story too. Let me tell you about Leo. Leo lived and breathed English. He started his day with an English podcast, scrolled through English articles on his lunch break, and ended his day with a movie in English. He got the fast-talking characters, the clever jokes, the complicated arguments. In the safety of his own mind, his English was brilliant. He'd have these imaginary conversations where he was witty, sharp, and totally confident. But in the real world, Leo was silent. One afternoon at work, his team was brainstorming. Leo had a fantastic idea. He had the perfect sentence ready to go, the vocabulary was spot on. He waited for a pause, the right moment to jump in. But as he opened his mouth, his heart started to hammer against his ribs. A voice in his head started screaming, "What if you say it wrong? What if they think your idea is stupid? What if they ask a follow-up and you can't answer?" And just like that, the moment was gone. Someone else started talking, the conversation moved on, and Leo's idea stayed locked away in his mind. He felt that familiar hot wave of frustration and shame. It was like there was an invisible wall between his brain and his mouth, a wall built brick by brick with the fear of imperfection. That wall was his prison, and he had no clue how to break out. Leo was on the verge of giving up. He started to think that maybe he just wasn't cut out to be an English speaker, destined to be a permanent audience member forever on the outside looking in. Then, one evening, while scrolling, he stumbled upon an interview with a musician talking about stage fright. The musician said something that made Leo stop in his tracks. "I used to be terrified of hitting a wrong note," the musician said. "I wanted every single show to be perfect. Then I realized the audience doesn't show up for perfection, they show up for a connection, for a feeling. Now, I don't focus on playing perfectly, I focus on sharing the music with them." And that's when it clicked. Click. Leo had been treating English like a performance to be judged, not a tool to connect. He was so wrapped up in the fear of hitting a wrong note, a grammar slip, a mispronounced word, that he'd forgotten the whole point of language in the first place. The secret key wasn't some new study hack. It was a simple, powerful mindset shift. Focus on communication, not perfection. Think about it. When a friend is telling you an amazing, passionate story, do you stop them mid-sentence to point out they used the wrong tense? Of course not. You're caught up in the story, the emotion, the connection. The same is true for you. people are way more interested in what you have to say than in how perfectly you say it. Mistakes aren't failures, they're just part of the process. The goal isn't to be flawless, it's to be understood. This new mindset was a revelation, but an idea is just an idea until you use it. Leo knew he had to put it into action. He decided to start small, to find a low-stakes situation to practice, a new coffee shop, outside his usual neighborhood. As he stood in line, the old anxiety started creeping back, heartbeat picking up, the negative self-talk getting louder, but this time he had something to fight back with. He repeated his new mantra in his head: communication, not perfection; connection, not performance. He got to the counter. The barista smiled. "What can I get for you?" The old Leo would have just pointed at the menu and mumbled, "One latte." But the new Leo took a breath. He made eye contact. He decided to try. "Hello, can I have one large latte, please?" It wasn't perfect. He hesitated, but the barista just smiled and said, "Sure thing, one large latte. Anything else?" Leo felt a tiny jolt of success. He spoke. He was understood. The world didn't end. He decided to push his luck. When the barista handed him the coffee, Leo looked at him and said, "Thank you. Have good day." Again, not exactly Shakespeare, but the message got through. The barista replied, "You too, man," and turned to the next person. Walking out of that coffee shop, Leo felt a rush of triumph he hadn't felt in years. It was a tiny interaction, totally meaningless to anyone else. But for Leo, it was everything. He had used the key. He had turned the lock, and for the first time, he felt the invisible wall start to crack. He had communicated, and that was enough. That tiny win at the coffee shop was the first domino. It gave Leo the proof he desperately needed. Communication works. So he started actively looking for small chances to speak, always armed with his mantra. In meetings, he stopped just nodding along. If he agreed, he'd say, "Yes, I agree." A simple 3-word sentence. But it was his voice. He stopped ignoring messages in the group chat and started replying with a simple "thank you" or "looks good." He started reading out loud at home, not to check his grammar, but just to get his mouth and brain used to the physical act of making English sounds again. With each small act of speaking, his focus shifted. It moved away from his own internal fear and onto the person he was talking to. He started to realize that most people are patient and kind. When he fumbled for a word, they waited. Sometimes they even helped him find it. No one ever laughed, no one ever judged him. The harshest critic he had ever faced was the one living in his own head. The invisible wall didn't crumble overnight, but with every conversation, another brick came loose. His sentences got longer, his hesitations got shorter. The voice that had been trapped for so long was finally finding its way out. Not because he'd magically become a perfect English speaker, but because he had finally given himself permission to be an imperfect communicator. Your turn to unlock your voice. Leo's story isn't just a story, it's a roadmap. It shows that the biggest barrier to speaking is usually the one we build ourselves. So now it's your turn to find your key and take that first step. Here is your mission for today. I don't want you to open a grammar book. I don't want you to memorize a word list. I want you to do one simple, tiny act of communication in English. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is just to do it. It can be incredibly small. Here are some ideas. Leave a comment on a YouTube video in English. Just "great video" or "thank you" is perfect. If you play online games, use the chat to type "GG, good game" at the end of a match. The next time you're in a store, try saying hello and thank you in English. Use a language exchange app to send one simple message, like "Hi, how are you?" Choose one, just one. Your task is to prove to yourself that you can connect even in the smallest way. The point is to give your brain new evidence, proof that speaking is safe and that communication is the real prize. The secret to unlocking your English voice isn't in a textbook, it's a mindset shift. It's the life-changing realization that language is for connection, not perfection. Fluency isn't some finish line you cross one day. It's a journey you build with thousands of small, messy, imperfect, and brave acts of communication. You already have so much English inside of you. Today is a day you let a little bit out. Take a deep breath, remember Leo, and remember the key: communication, not perfection. Once you've completed your small task, come back here and write, "I did it," in the comments. Let's fill this space with our victories, no matter how small. Your one comment might just be the spark that inspires someone else to unlock their voice too. And if this story helped you, please subscribe and share it with someone who also feels trapped behind that invisible wall. Let's unlock our voices together.